Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel, and thank you for joining me today for part 2 of my interview with Robert Aho about his near-death experience. In part 1, he shares his experience. I'll have that linked in the description. And today we're continuing with a Q&A, and among other things, we are going to be talking about the reincarnation soul trap theory because Robert had an extensive experience in the light. And so I wanted to get his thoughts as somebody who has experienced the light on whether or not there's anything to be worried about there, because it is a topic that is just flooding my channel right now, at least at the time of recording this. So Robert's links will be in the description. Thank you so much for watching. One thing that I get asked a lot is some variation of this question. If we are already what we are in the light, whether we call it perfect love or source or whatever, if we are already that, then why do we come to this physical life, and why do we need to learn love or awaken at all? And do you have a perspective on that?
Oh, certainly. We create barriers for ourselves. We put things in our way that block us from the light. Um, one of the terms for that is demon. We create demons. We create millions of demons. Whenever we're just about to awaken, something stops us. Now that's not an outside source. That's something we create in our own mind. So that's something that we need to recognize is part of us. And so if we're practicing love and compassion, in order to dissipate the demon, we have to practice love and compassion because and accept the demons that are there to stop us, because we know that they're stopping us from who we really are. And so they can't, you increase your own light and your own love, your own compassion, and those demons can't stay in your way. It clears them out, they dissolve. And so we sometimes people have made the analogy that when you look at the sky, there's clouds in the sky, but there's clear, bright light above the clouds. That's not really true, because we are that light. So we are looking at a sky with clouds in it, deluding ourselves into thinking that we are deluded, that we are having our vision obscured, that we have to go out there to see the light. It's not out there, it's in here. In Christianity, the saying is the kingdom of heaven is within you. Now that is absolutely true. That's where you look. You look inward. You don't look outward for anything. You look inward. It's all here. It's all here in your heart center. This is who you really are. Now, when we look outwardly and we imagine all sorts of things and we believe all sorts of things, that creates obstructions, because now we're thinking that we have to look out there for the light. But if we just realize that we've never left the light, we haven't fallen from heaven, we haven't fallen from grace, we haven't become something dark and hideous. We are the light. We are love and light. It sounds a little bit like a cliche in some circles. Everybody says love and light, but it's true. That's who we are. So when we can't see that, when we're not aware, we become obscured. So we come back to life. I mean, every time we die, we go into that light. And then we're reborn because we haven't yet realized fully that we are that light. So we have provided the fuel, and we've lit the match, and we're flying through this death bardo, this gap between lifetimes, because we have been clinging to this life. We create actions. The word action is the same as the word karma. Karma is not a punishment. It has nothing to do with that. Karma has to do with just things that we create for ourselves, and it's not a material thing either. It's this diluted state. So we have actions that have not been in alignment with that true state that we already are. So we can, there's some circles that walk around and say, oh, I'm not really real, and who would think that, and where would I be, and and saying that I'm already enlightened, there's no such thing as enlightenment. Well, if we're here, that means we have fallen into a state of ignorance and delusion. And how did we do that? Well, it's by our own actions, by clinging to what we think is real without really thinking anything about it. We become this person by fabricating this self, and then we suffer in many ways. We get old, we die. This is our cycle. We're in this eternal cycle, and we've created that. So when we become that eternal light, realize that, oh, that self is not yet awake. That person needs to return to life until they awaken. So they be in that state of awareness because you've already got the clinging to life and being part of a person who has who's living under delusion. So delusion is and ignorance is simply not understanding our real condition. We talk about what our real condition is all day, all night. It's no, but that won't help you. You have to experience it directly. And so we have this opportunity. We have a short life. We're human beings. Oh, that's wonderful. When you're human, you have the freedom to do something like awakening. So this is very fortunate. And so we're not always human. Sometimes we're a different type of being. And it's harder in any other type of realm. It's harder to become awakened than it is in the human realm, because we're right kind of in the middle of things. So we have this fortunate life that allows us to develop a sense that we need to awaken. Otherwise, we're sort of have this sense of, well, I need to do better in life. I need to get a better job, a bigger house, better car, things like that. Okay, well, you're clinging to things like that, and that leads to more confusion, more delusion. You're obstructing yourself. It never leads to happiness. It leads to a sort of an inner misery, and it's not respectful to our own spiritual life. Our own spiritual life is, and I can't say what the answer to that is because it's different with everybody, but it's understanding internally by looking within what is true and what's important, and really developing a desire to awaken to that wisdom that is us. So once we awaken, there's no problem. We can come or go as we please. Then we have freedom. That's why in Buddhism it's referred to as liberation.
In another interview, I heard you make the statement, everything is simple. So I've wanted to ask you, what is everything?
Well, our real existence is very simple. It's that Dharmakaya light. There's no complexity to it. You don't have to work hard to understand it. In fact, to understand it, you have to learn how to do absolutely nothing. To just let that well, I should say let absolutely nothing. You have to open your heart and mind completely and just let that shine. Now that's not so easy to do because when we are human beings, we have a lot of complexity. We're always doing things. We're always adding things. We've always got things to take care of, things to keep track of, all these material possessions. We have to pay attention to the language that we speak. We have to pay attention to the people that we know. We got to remember what it is about this and what it is about that. It's very complicated. That's not actually very important. Those are things that we do as deluded beings. And when we do that, when we make it really complicated, when we're sort of like adding all sorts of stuff onto this wisdom of love and light, the Dharmakaya, the window behind me looks pretty bright, so it's like, so it's like, that's it. That's all there is. And when we realize our real nature, very simple. It's just very simple. It's just as it is. It has nothing to do with belief. Belief is completely worthless in that condition. Once we understand who we really are, you don't have to keep repeating that, oh, I'm love and light, love and light. You don't have to say these types of things. It's just very simple, because now you have an ongoing awareness. You're present. No matter what happens, you live in a spontaneous state of awareness, of being aware, but not necessarily doing anything. You're simply spontaneously reacting, and you're not having to make this extreme effort that we all do in life. That's one of the things about awakening, and I may have said it in a previous interview like this, but we catch those little glimpses when we're not doing anything, or in a moment of trauma, or when we're feeling extreme pleasure or extreme pain. You catch a glimpse. It's just a very simple moment. And then you try to do something with that. Okay, I need to tell somebody about that, but where did it go? Okay, and when you talk to circles of people who are very actively engaged in meditation, this is something that they will talk about. I know I've spoken about this with a number of groups, and people are like, oh yeah, when you're really doing well with your meditation, it becomes very simple. So meditation is kind of a good way to practice reality, because you're not adding belief. You're looking inwardly at what is as it is. And so you can become more and more familiar with your real state, and then you can experience that directly once you're ready. And a person has to be ready for that, or it won't stick. Because if, let's say you receive an introduction to Dzogchen teachings, which prior to my near-death experience, I was a Dzogchen practitioner, which is, kind of grouped in with Buddhism. That it's not attaining the final answer to something. It's being introduced direct so that you can experience it directly. And so if you're not ready for that, well, it'll just be like your experience in a dream. You might see a flash of light. Or actually, when people die, that light is usually just a flash of light. They don't necessarily abide in that state of light for an eternity. They'll see a flash of light, and then they'll go to their new body, their next life, based upon their own actions. So their own karma sort of projects them, and it's their own actions that do this. You've created a world around you, and now it makes you've launched yourself someplace. And so whether you can do that in a controlled state or not, it kind of depends on how well you've mastered your own mind.
It's interesting that you bring that up specifically, because there's a growing group of people who are talking about, like, spreading a very fear-based message about the light and saying that it's a soul trap. Don't go to the light because you'll just have your memory wiped and be sent back into another body. And I personally don't believe this, and I've shied away from talking about it because I don't want to feed into that. But as somebody who has experienced the light, what would you say to those people?
Well, you're going to experience the light whether you want to or not. If it's time for you to die and then get reborn, you will if you haven't prepared yourself, you will very uncontrollably go through the light and into the next body. It seems when you're reborn, it's not exactly that your memory is wiped. It's really that you just got a whole new set of problems. People are speaking a different language. If you were, let's say you were human and you're reborn as a human, which is not always the case, but now you're reborn as a human and you have to learn a new language, new customs, new identity, new way to live your life. Everything's different. You're not necessarily born into the same tribe. You're oftentimes born completely all the way around the world, which my last lifetime, I lived in the Himalayas and I died as a small child, and I was reborn here. But I did a lot of things as a child that I kept from my previous life. I was seen meditating all the time when I was a child. I was sitting cross-legged, and well, I had actually lived with a Buddhist family, and then I was reborn with Lutherans. And so my Scandinavian parents thought there's something really wrong with that boy. Why is he always sitting there cross-legged doing nothing? And so I was doing that at 3 years of age pretty regularly, and I used to get angry with my parents for because I couldn't explain to them why I was doing that. So my memories weren't wiped. It was just that I had so many different things to learn as a new person. I had to learn how to speak Minnesotan, and things like that. And so and then I had to go to school and learn how to be an architect eventually, and I was pretty fascinated by religion growing up, and I really I wanted to learn everything that I could. I explored other religions very in depth. I had a good friend that was a Pentecostal, so I went to their church quite often, and I went to Catholic churches and Methodist and Baptist and Jehovah's Witnesses. I went there once in a while, and I went to just different things. I had friends from different friends and family in different religions. Very interested. Before I gave up religion for a while, it was just part of my spiritual path to take a break, take a breather, and so it's when I think about people who say don't go into the light, first of all, there's no reason to generate fear because that's who we are. We are that light. Don't go into the light. How can you go out of the light? So what we are tempted to do is to become a more disturbing person, a person who lives with fear, a person who lives with hate and anger. And that's very, very tempting, even among religious people. They, if they get really political about things, all of a sudden they just hate everybody. They want the world to end, and they just think everything's awful. And well, they're just deluding themselves and making their own suffering worse, making the suffering of others worse, because we are the light. We are that God source. That's us. We're not separate from that. That the whole notion that we're separate from that is the problem. That's what causes suffering. So that's what ego does. It creates this sense of separateness. So if a person is, very, like my religion is the best, but yours is the worst. Okay, First of all, that's just belief. You're just a human. There's nothing special about you being a human. And as far as cosmic beings go, humans are fairly low on the totem pole. We are not that brilliant. It's easy for us to delude ourselves, but we're also smart enough to realize that this suffering is not good. We need to find a way to remove suffering from our lives. And awakening is the only way that we can get away from this terrible eternal cycle. So that means going into the light. Just go into the light. Don't have any fear. One of the first things I told people the first, I think it was probably the first thing I said to someone when I had admitted that I had died. I mean, someone beyond the hospital staff, somebody in my family. We don't have anything to worry about. Nothing. Don't worry about it. It's just wonderful. And even if you don't awaken before you die, don't worry about it. Your next lifetime you'll do better. You'll have more of a need to, you'll have created that seed of awakening, and you'll be able to carry on from lifetime to lifetime. That was my second book, The Frog. I was talking about how we, don't give up. I mean, I remember when I was a frog, and I never gave up on my spiritual life. Never gave up. I always sought the truth. I always wanted to know what the truth is. And that meant asking a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to ask a question. I mean, for crying out loud, you're trying to discover what is, not trying to delude yourself. You're trying to get rid of some of these demons by asking questions. And that's a wonderful thing. So that's also going into the light, but you're already the light.
Well, Robert, thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today. Is there any projects you have going on or anything that you'd like to share with people about how they can get in touch with you? I will have links to your website and your books in the description.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got my two books, Timeless Luminosity and The Frog, and I thank everybody who has purchased a copy. If you want to get a hold of me, that's fine if you email me at bobaho@gmail.com, BOBAHO @gmail.com. The website that I just started, I haven't gotten active on it yet, is timelessluminosity.com. I will be writing newsletters, and you will be able to contact me through that as well. I think you can subscribe to my newsletters. I just don't have anything published yet. I just started with the cover of my first book, and I've just things have been getting in the way.
Yeah.
I take that as a good sign. If things get in the way, that means I'm probably on to something that will benefit people. And so I'll try to clear away those demons and get those obstructions out of the way. And I'll try to get this newsletter written. It seems like it's just a constant stream of things slowing that process down, but at least the website is in place, and you can certainly subscribe to the newsletter. I promise I will try to get going on that soon. And my next book that I'm working on, I wanted to write a much more thorough description of the near-death experience and the death bardo and coming back to life, and what it's like to be living in this body after having such an experience. It's been a difficult process, because I'm delving into sort of the death state repeatedly through meditation, and reliving that so that I can remember it clearly, because we're talking about a very long time having been in the death bardo from from my point of view, 100 years in just the energetic dimension. And so it's stalled out a number of times. I'm trying to get that written. I've made some fairly good progress, but it's taken a bit of a toll on me trying to remember all of that in extreme detail, and sort of reliving that death experience over and over again is it's difficult, even though the condition of light is the source is so wonderful. I mean, just so wonderful. Living through that, I'm also looking at past life traumas and sort of the traumas from this life and what it is that I've assembled here. I assembled myself in a way that includes the traumas. I'm not trying to say, okay, some of the bad things that have happened to me, I'm not throwing those away, because those make me the person that people expect me to be. So that I don't know when I'll have that done. I set it aside for a while and started working on a different work, and then I know I'm back working on that a little bit, but it's been quite a process, and a lot of things have kind of gotten in the way lately too. So anyhow, that's that, and I'll just hold my books up here. Timeless Luminosity and The Frog, a spiritual autobiography spanning many lifetimes. This one is a lot more difficult to read than this one. This one's more inspirational, and its purpose is to help people awaken to what is. Not what you believe is, but what is. So if you're pretty sure about your beliefs, you'll discover that that's what is.
Thank you again. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today, Robert. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Been a pleasure.